Welcome back to another episode of Off the Comma, episode 108. Who knew we would get here? This is very exciting. And coming to you from two different points on the planet. Actually, you got to have this week we have a couple of nomads talking to each other. I'm currently coming from upstate New York, and I'm going to let Jeremy describe where he's coming to you from. I don't want to steal his thunder, but so exciting that we live in a world where we could do. First of all, do this, have these kinds of conversations from opposite sides of the planet, and do it while in motion and while experiencing life in different ways. It's just really, really cool. And so much more I could say about that. But very grateful to be here, very grateful to be back for another episode. And this week, I'm very excited to be interviewing somebody who we've kind of met online through some of our social media platforms and conversations, kicking around kind of common experiences and thoughts and ideas around the nomad experience. And so I'm very excited to finally get to talk face to face with you, Jeremie, and really get to know more about you through your story today. So with that, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to turn it over to you. Jeremie, let's have you introduce yourself. Start with how would you like to be known, and then what would you like folks to know about you?
Yeah, thank you, Paul, for having me today. I really appreciate it. My name is Jeremy. I am actually in Serbia at the moment. So yeah, in a Eastern Europe country. I would define myself as someone very curious. That's probably the main adjective that I like to use. Also very nerdy slash techie. I guess it depends on who I'm talking to. Techie is
Hmm.
more like nice, nerdy is more like for friends.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
um, yeah, someone fairly stubborn. I've got to be honest about it. Also, comes with
Okay.
I can also bring the positive note being you know very focused and determined when I want to get something done. And something that I discovered late in life. I don't think 20 years ago I would have defined myself as that, but fairly adventurous,
Mm.
which is something that I discovered in my 30s. I didn't know about that before about myself, but yeah, that's something that came up and it's part of the story. So I'll explain a bit more about it.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing how these traits show up in your story. Some of these I can
Yeah.
relate to, curious and nerdy. This is the year that I've been leaning into my weirdo kind of self and that nerdy self. So, but stubborn, focused, adventurous, those are a lot of traits from a lot of different corners. I'm really excited to see how those shape
Yeah.
themselves in your story. Jeremy, what else would you like for folks to know about you? You said you're coming to us from Serbia. And I kind of already alluded to the fact that you're nomading. Is there anything else that would be important for people to know to kind of pave the way into your story?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's just at least you can understand better once you've heard my story. But yeah, I have been living what we call a digital nomad life since May 2021, so a little bit over 4 years. And yeah, so what does that mean? Is that since 2021, my wife and I'm gonna say hi, basically. We don't
Hmm.
have a home base. We sold our apartment. We sold most of our possessions. We still have a few things under the bed in my parents' house, but we
Hmm.
pretty much sold everything. And we've been living in, I couldn't tell you, maybe 20 different countries in the past 4 years,
Wow.
jumping from a continent to another while working on our own businesses at the same time. So
Mm.
we've been, I quit my job in 2021 to become an entrepreneur and nomad at the same time, which was maybe of a crazy idea, but so far so good.
Well, I mean, crazy according to whom, right? Like I'm sure there's a lot of people and any guest on this episode, there'll be a lot of people who might have some things to say about their story or
Yeah,
their experience, but really the only thing that matters is us, right? And how we
it
feel
is.
about it. I'm really excited to learn more about this and to hear about your experience with it, however it shows up in your story. And then of course, you and I are going to talk more after this because we've been blowing up the chats and the comments and on social media about nomad experiences and so forth. So we'll see where this goes, kind of
Yeah,
outside the context of your story. Jeremy, before we get into the five questions, obviously it's the same five questions for every guest. And you and I haven't really talked about what you're going to be sharing today, which is kind of the way I like to do these interviews and these conversations. Before you get into your story today, When you think about the next 30, 45 minutes of telling your story, what intention would you have for yourself today?
I always find interesting to speak out loud a story that I know very well, right? Because it's mine.
Hmm.
But what I found interesting is that the more I speak about my stories and the more I speak about the different layers that made me who I am today, and also by having, someone to talk to and always asking me different questions, I always discover something here and there that is always very interesting. I can tell my story to 10 different people and I think I will get 10 different things every time because
Mm.
you're going to understand or to relate to a specific part and ask me a question. I'm going to be, oh, that's a very good point. Actually, I've never thought about that this way before. So that's also one of the reasons that I like to put myself out there and kind of talk about my story, um, because it's not just for other people to get something out of it. I also discover myself in a way every
Hmm.
time, a little nugget, here and there.
Yeah, I love that. I have found that too. Sometimes in retelling the story, there's some new kind of insight or discovery or learning, or sometimes a memory gets unlocked and there's another factor or a
Yeah,
detail that I had forgotten about that suddenly it's come up and now it's ridiculously relevant to something that's happening in my life, right?
yeah,
Jeremie, I want to support your intention by creating a space for you to be able to tell your story. And my intention is that in helping you get your story out there, that there will be people who hear your story and they will see a little bit of themselves in you and your story, feel a little more connected, a little less alone, and in the best of cases, feel a little bit more inspired or even empowered to go out and do something that they've been wanting to do.
that would be amazing.
Let's jump into it. Jeremie, the first question is, where in your life have you found yourself sitting on a comma?
And it's interesting because I didn't prepare anything knowing the questions before, but I also want to say that what I'm going to be sharing is, with years of reflection and with hindsight. Like when I was at this stage of everything that I'm going to talk about, I wasn't aware that I was in a situation in a way, right? So it's always
Hmm.
easier when you look back and reflect and have like, oh yeah, that was that, right? So um, yeah, I would say the first 30 years of my life, literally, that
Mm.
was this big chapter. And it's literally when I turned 30 that things changed for me. Um, and it's fascinating. I know that doesn't mean anything, but a very regular, normal childhood. I've learned that you can ask the same question to 10 different people and everyone has a different definition of a normal, regular childhood.
Hmm.
But what I mean by that is, born and raised in France, in the south of France. My parents were living together, still live together. I'm an only child. Um, I grew up in a small town in the south of France. And um, I didn't realize that back when I was a kid, obviously, but I realized that I grew up in an environment that was, I would say, like kind of a bit conflicted between I felt loved and supported, and I always got what I needed and what I wanted. I was the only child, right? So I could ask for anything. I was getting it to a certain extent. Um, so felt very loved on this side, but also there was also a side that I thought it was normal, but I realized later it wasn't. But like very narrow-minded, and it's just because of where I'm from and also the way my parents and my grandparents were raised, and it's just a
Hmm.
consequence of everything. But I was raised in a very racist and homophobic environment. Told stuff like don't be gay, don't come with someone of color, like those kind of comments.
Hmm.
So it took me a while to really unpack to the impact that's had on my life. I didn't realize when I was a kid that was really doing anything, but obviously it did. Um,
Mm.
I also want to point that, yeah, my parents were like what I would qualify as middle class people. Um, we had everything that we needed, but we didn't also thrive and did very fancy stuff. My parents are not very adventurous or travelers, so we didn't go in holidays or traveling anywhere, stuff like that, which is very ironic looking at my life
Mm.
now. Um, and yeah, so the first really 20 years of my life were all about following the path that I was told to follow, to be honest. Um, I obviously had interests and hobbies, but you know, I was told by my dad. My dad has been a carpenter and in construction for like 40 years. So he always worked outside doing heavy, tiring physical work. And
Hmm.
he always told me when I was a kid, like, be good at school. Don't be like me. Go to school, listen to your teacher, get good grades, get a good degree, and become an engineer. For my dad, that was like the poster child. It's like become an engineer, whatever that means.
Mm. Hmm.
um, but for him, that meant you're going to be working in an office on a computer, and you're not going to be physically tired like I've been for the past, I don't know how many decades. That was his
Hmm.
definition of me having a successful life. Um, so he was encouraging me to do that, right? With a lot of love and good intentions. And I mean, not questioning much back in the days, I just followed this path and I was good at school also, so that helped, I guess.
Hmm.
I was good in school, I was good in anything science and tech related, which was good, with the rise of computer science and stuff like that, beginning of 2000. So it was a good timing. So yeah, I went to uni, I got my bachelor, I got my master degree. Um, but not because I was passionate about it, not because I wanted to, it's just because that was what was expected from me, and because
Hmm.
I felt like that's what I should be doing to be a good son, a good citizen, I guess, right? You go to
Hmm.
school and you become an adult and you get your degree and then you can start your life, right? That's like the narrative that we are told, basically. Um,
Hmm.
so I graduated from my master degree at 22 years old, 23 years old. Yeah, it wasn't
Hmm.
2011. Um, and yeah, and again, from there, I carried on checking the boxes of life. I met my wife when I was 22 years old. When we graduated, we got an apartment together. We moved in together. We got a job. After a few years, we bought an apartment. You get a car, and then we got engaged, and then we got married. So we were like on the path of like many, many, many millions of billions of people are basically.
Hmm.
And not again, not questioning anything, just following this trajectory, this path that was laid for us by parents and society and expectation.
Hmm.
Um, and it's interesting looking back at it. I don't think I've never felt unhappy. And when I look at it, I'm not looking at this like miserable life or anything like that. But I don't think for the first 30 years of my life, I really did many things that I really wanted because I wanted it myself. I can probably think of literally one is at 22 years old, decided to go to Australia. And that's
Hmm.
crazy when you think about it. I've never traveled with my parents for the first 2 decades of my life. We didn't do anything. I didn't speak a word of English. Australia was this thing on the other side of the globe when you look at it, but that was it.
Sure.
And when I was doing my master degree, we one of the requirement was to spend a semester doing like an internship somewhere to work for a company or whatever. And I knew it would be a smart idea to learn English, to work in computer science, in tech, like having English in my toolbox would be a good move, right? And I was like, well, if I've got to learn English, I've got to go somewhere. And I had this fascination by Australia. Um, and I asked my parents, like, hey, I found something over there. Could I go? And
Hmm.
my parents said yes, which I found crazy also. They said yes because I don't think they understood. I don't think, yeah, it's
Well,
crazy when you think about it.
can I jump in and reflect
Yeah,
something
yeah.
for a moment? So, and again, I'll jump in from time to time, and if I'm ever like not reflecting something accurately, just correct me, or if I'm jumping in too soon, push me back out again. But um, since you're on that topic of your parents, like I noticed as you were sharing the story is very interesting. On the one hand, I mean, you said you were loved and you had the support that you needed, and that the community was kind of conservative and you said narrow-minded, had a lot of other issues and challenges that you identified. But yet in your father, I see you describing someone who very much wanted something different for you and everything that was the opposite of what he had, not because he had it, but because he seemed to be unhappy with it. And then fast forward, now here you want to go to Australia, travel around the world, and they said yes. So it's just interesting. It's an interesting dynamic that it seems that your parents, and for sure your father, he's the only one you've really spoken about, really wanted you to have something more than what you currently had. I mean, is that a fair summary?
No, yeah, it is. It is. And no, it's very interesting. And I don't fully have an answer to this day to like the thought process behind it. But I do find it interesting that I don't, and even to this day, I don't think they fully understand the life I'm living in. I'm living like this lifestyle and everything. They are supportive. They've never stopped me to do anything, but they also never encourage me and say like, whoa, whoa, cheer me up. They just deal
Mm,
with. I would say they deal with it. That's the best way I can describe it.
sort of
Um,
left you to your own devices, like encouraged, but um, not
I
really
wouldn't say
backed and
encouraged.
supported. Okay.
I wouldn't say encourage. I would say we're okay with it. We're not going to stop you from doing it,
Okay.
uh, which is great. I mean, it's better than stopping me from doing it.
Hmm.
It's very interesting that they are letting me do that without understanding why or my interest and my intentions behind it. It's very
Yeah.
interesting, and I've never talked to them about that and why they did. To be honest, that's what I'm saying. I don't have an answer.
Interesting. Well, and while I'd love
Making
to ask
assumptions.
and learn more about that, this is really about you and your experience. And I
Yeah.
kind of interrupted you. You said, okay, well, here I go off to Australia. And then what?
Well, the main thing two things happened in Australia. I learned English, which was the the main goal,
Hmm.
but I also met my now wife. We were 22 years old. She was 21, 22. We were roommate. We just shared an apartment over there.
Hmm.
So my wife is English, but I'm just saying that for the listeners. And yeah, we met there. We were just, flirting like 21, 22 years old would do,
Sure.
abroad having fun and everything. And somehow we fell in love, and 15 years later, we're still together.
Nice.
Which, I would have never guessed that would happen when I booked my
Hmm.
ticket to Australia. But yeah, here we are. That was fascinating.
Yeah, let me jump in again if I may. So I'm going to ask the second question, but feel free to go back and forth. It feels like there's more of the story to tell as well.
Yeah.
The second question is when you look back at this comma that you've been describing, what did it create for you? And I would like to add to that I'm curious, what made this feel like a comma for you? You said you didn't really know it at the time. You didn't feel unhappy. You were doing all the
Yeah.
things. It's really in hindsight that it feels like it. So what made this a comma for you and what did it create for you?
Yeah, that's where it gets very interesting, I think, and that's the thing I like to reflect about. We understand
Hmm.
the human brain here, right? It's all in there. It's all about that. um, so, like I said, like we followed the traditional path. We got married and everything, got a good job, and and things started to shift when we decided to start to have babies, to create a family.
Hmm.
Um, it started in 2016, a very early miscarriage.
Hmm.
And then in 2017, so the year of my 30th birthday, that's when everything turned upside down. My wife got pregnant again at the end of 2016, just a couple of months after the first miscarriage.
Hmm.
Um, we didn't have a miscarriage this time, so we went to the scan. We got the 3 month scan. We told our parents. We yeah, we got excited. We told everyone. We started to buy things, think about name and all that. It was gonna happen. It was. Now we could see it happening.
Hmm.
And at around 6 months, during one of the scan, uh, the doctor detected some anomalies with the baby. And basically, we went through a long series of testing and everything, and we found out that the baby had a very rare genetic disorder that is coming from Rosie and I passing down a specific gene and creating this specific disorder. And it was
Hmm.
affecting his lungs, his heart, his bones, his teeth, his fingers. The list was very long. And basically, we were highly recommended, based on all the information that we had, to terminate the pregnancy. It was up to
Hmm.
us. It wasn't forced, but they gave us the data. They gave us all the information that they could give us, and we had to decide. And yeah, based on the information that we had, we decided it was better for everyone to terminate the pregnancy. That was the right
Hmm.
thing to do. I know it's a very complicated topic, but
Hmm. Hmm.
we did what we thought was right for us and for him and for everyone. And but that doesn't leave you. It's not because we took the decision, we make the decision that it was easy, right? And
Hmm.
so that happened in May 2017.
I,
And
as you
yeah,
continue, I just wanted to acknowledge you for a moment and just, say how difficult that must have been. Difficult for any parents to have to make that decision, making that decision on top of having already lost a child before. I mean, this had to have been just a terribly difficult time and just a really, really difficult decision for two young, soon to be parents to have to make.
to this day, still the hardest decision that I have. I think it will be forever the hardest decision that I had to take. Like, I mean, I don't think
Hmm.
anything can beat that. I can still see myself, if I close my eyes, signing the paper in this
Hmm.
little hospital office with the nurse on the other side. I could picture everything in this room when I signed the paper. That was the
Hmm.
most traumatic event for me for some reason. And obviously the actual termination that also was yeah, very traumatic. But yeah,
Sure.
the 6 months following that, from May to December 2017, I mean, was I don't even know how to describe that, but a roller coaster, mainly going down of
Mm,
emotions, and I mean that could be a whole entire 2 hours podcast episode, but um, yeah, it was very complicated and interesting because I felt that I had to be the strong one. So I was taking care of all the paperwork because there's plenty of things like that to do that you have to deal with when stuff like that happen.
hmm.
Paperwork, logistic, and then just my own grief and my wife's grief and
Sure.
everything around that, like as individuals, but also as a couple, as potentially to be parents. There's so many layers that you have to navigate.
Very
Um,
complex. And just trying to navigate yourself through a situation like that, much less supporting each other. And then there's the relationship itself, which seems like it's kind of like, where does that fit? Like right now, we're in
yeah,
survival mode, right? We've got to just do
exactly.
survival things.
Yeah, and then there's also like there was so many layers of like people calling to ask how we were doing, but always asking about her and not me. That was something
Mm,
very traumatic for me to this day,
mm,
because it physically happened to her, right? Which I understand. Like, I'm not blaming people, but it is what it is. But people were always asking about her, is she all right? But not me. And yeah,
hmm.
this, like I said, that could be a very long conversation just by itself. Um,
It sounds like that was even more challenging, because of it, and has definitely left an impression, like you
yeah,
said.
no, yeah, it did.
What a
And
tough like year now that you're describing.
yeah, no, yeah, the I didn't expect my 30th anniversary, birthday to be that. But yeah,
Hmm.
it is what it is. And but that was the turning point, which is also, you know, life. It's weird because without that happening, I don't think I would be talking to you today.
Hmm.
Which is the that would have not happened. I think I would still be living this traditional life with a path that was expected by everyone. I would have,
Hmm.
we would have a child, we would have maybe another one, we would have got a bigger house, we would have carried on with the job that we had, and we would probably still be in France doing just regular life. I'm
Interest.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead. I'm
I'm pretty
sorry.
sure. Yeah, no, yeah, I'm pretty sure that would be the case. So it's like, you know, it's very strange, but I've learned in a way to be grateful about it because I'm sad, but I'm also grateful it happened. And I know maybe some people might struggle to comprehend that. um, but I'm very happy today, and
Hmm.
it's just part of my story. It's just part of who I am today, and I've got to accept it.
It seems interesting that, you know, you were on this traditional path, kind of following the path, no real questioning, no real sense of wanting or needing anything else. And then, kind of one of the most significant moments in the traditional path that you could have experienced then went differently. And I wouldn't encourage or invite, unless it's part of your story, that there needs to be some cosmic significant meaning or anything, but just in the telling of your story, it was clear that that was the end of the traditional path.
Yeah.
So, what, before we get into the third question, what was the beginning of the non-traditional path? Like, bridge for me, if you can, if it's part of your story, bridge for me this really, really challenging 30th year and this year of pain and grief and this end of the traditional path to the non-traditional path.
No, I've never thought about it this way, but you called it the bridge, and uh, I'm gonna have to reflect on that because I think it's a very interesting word, and there was a bridge. Like I
Hmm.
can see it now that you said that. I can visualize it. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, because it seems like as a result of this, you both started making different choices. Like something clearly shifted for you, but
Yeah.
what else was that shift beyond just this really tragic moment? What else happened for you? What else changed for you? And then what did you start doing about it?
No, yeah. So in November 2017, uh, we Rosie said one day, we gotta change something. We gotta get out of here. We gotta move from
Mm,
this apartment because I have, you know, too many memories and everything that happened here. I need to move on. Otherwise, uh, I'm not gonna be able to carry on. Good thing for us is that at the same time, with my job, there were talk with my French company of potentially moving to the US for a job opportunity. That was like in discussion. It wasn't real yet, but it was a possibility. I called my boss, my friends. I told them they knew everything that was happening, obviously, but I told them like, listen, we can't just stay here any longer. Um, so either we move to Miami next month and we can figure something out with work and everything, or I quit and I don't know what I'm gonna do, but we'll do something because we need to change. Because right now
mm,
we can't just stay here in the same environment and just keep going this way. We're not gonna heal. It's not safe for us. Um, and they were amazing. They were the best supportive boss that I could have ever had, and they were like, "Okay, we're gonna make it happen. Give me a couple of days." And literally, like I think a month later, we were in Miami.
mm,
Within a month, they sorted everything out for work and visa and stuff like that. We put our apartment up for rent. We sold pretty much everything that we had, and on December 17, 2017, we were flying to Miami. And
mm,
we just want to point that we flew very consciously before Christmas because we didn't want to spend Christmas with family because it should have been the best Christmas ever and it would have been the shittiest Christmas ever. So we didn't want to
Hmm.
celebrate Christmas with family. So we left before that uh, to protect ourselves, to be honest.
Hmm. Sure.
And um, Miami was the best thing that ever happened to us. We we didn't choose Miami, right? It was just where my company was opening the office. But Miami healed us. Miami was the bridge.
Mm,
We found the people that we needed. We found an environment that was everything that we needed at a time to heal, both of us.
mm,
Um, and what did that look like? I can't even explain why, but like obviously I knew that I had to heal somehow, and everything that we've tried before, just burying emotion, not talking, like all those stuff didn't work. So we had to try different stuff. So we're not religious, but we really went into like a lot of spiritual stuff around
hmm,
yoga, around meditation, about we did like cacao ceremony. We did a lot of different forms of meditations. We moved our bodies a lot. We we did a lot of community events to just spend time with people, hug people, have people that are expressing a lot of love and emotions and letting things out, and all those things that we did got the trauma out of our bodies and our mind to a certain
mm,
extent. And that was um that we it's funny because we didn't know that by doing all the things it would heal us, but we realized after doing all the things that we were feeling better. So then we started to like read about it and try to understand what was happening to us, and we understood that you know there is a very interesting book called The Body Keep the Score, and he talks about how
hmm.
the body store trauma and you can do things like yoga and different movement and somatic practices to heal your trauma and heal your body. And yeah, we were doing that without knowing what we were doing for a couple
Yeah.
of years.
Well, and I noticed too, since you started talking about the things have to change and you put in with your job to be able to make the move to Miami, that's what was accessible. Your energy just increased as you were telling the
Yeah,
story, like your energy elevated. And it's interesting too because Miami wasn't just a physical and geographical change, it was an ideological change. It was all the things that were so completely different from the traditional life. And it sounds like y'all really threw yourselves into all the different things.
we were transformed. Like the Jeremy pre-Miami and the Jeremy post-Miami are two very opposite people that I don't think would get along even anymore. It's
Mm,
fascinating when I think about it.
interesting.
No, yeah, uh, like I said, like ultimately we had to do something to heal.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened. So we had to embrace new and to welcome new forms of healing, and we had to be very open about it. And then, once you're into this spiral, like the call it whatever you want, whatever you believe in, I'm gonna call it the universe, but let's
Hmm.
just, uh, then I think the universe has a way to like put the right things in front of you when you need it, right? And it's like
Mm,
we met the right people at the right time that were very in tune with their emotions, and observing them and spending time with them was very like healing, like emotionally speaking for me. And then it was about meeting people living unconventional lives, people,
mm,
what I would call regular people like myself, uh, or even younger, having their own business and doing things that were like that I was not familiar with. I'm just gonna say that,
hmm.
and making money out of it and working on their own time. And yeah, the 3.5 years in Miami were a shift from like an emotional healing spiritual standpoint. But then also once this new me emerged of that, uh, when I got out of the hole, I can say, I was looking through the I was looking at the world through a different set of eyes.
Hmm.
And it's also something, it's like I made a promise to myself and to my baby boy that I would live the best life from now on.
Hmm.
Because that's what I mean by before I didn't question anything. But when that happened, I realized that life was unpredictable. We all make plans. We all plan to work for 40 years, retire, enjoy life when we are 60 plus and do this and that. And we just take it for granted. We are convinced that we are going to reach 60 something and retire. Like we
Mm-hmm.
just and we're gonna be healthy and we're gonna be able to do that. We don't even it's, it, stuff happened to other people, but it's not gonna happen to me. So I'm gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just take it for granted. And that was a wake up call for me. That was the thing. Like life, you can make plan. There's a saying, right? I think like human make plan and God laugh or something like that, right? I think there's it was exactly that. It's like we can plan everything that we want. We don't know what's gonna happen. And I made a promise to myself and to my people, like I'm going to live life on my own term from this day. I'm not going to do
Mm-hmm.
things because my parents told me to, because it's expected by society, because it's going to please my family, my friends, my boss, whoever. I'm going to do what the hell I want. And I don't want to die with any regrets. And
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, that was the beginning of the transformation. And like I said, like from there, I started to look at the world through a different set of eyes. And I think this, like, I don't know, some people call it manifestation, some whatever you want to call it, the law of attraction. But when you
Mm-hmm.
look for things, you see it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and I was open to that. I was open to new opportunities and possibilities, and I think the world just showed them to me. And I was meeting
Mm-hmm.
people doing this and that and traveling and this, and I was like, oh my God, like I didn't know that was an option for me. But those people are normal. Those people are like me. They're
Mm-hmm.
doing it, so I could do it as well. It's real.
Yeah.
And that changed everything. Like this little piece of information just changed everything.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How, I'm thinking about your story and going backwards now into your story, your parents being able to tell you the things that they would love to have for you or that they wanted for you in terms of go be an engineer, go get a degree, go to school and so forth. But now you're in a world where you are seeing people doing the things you want to do. So the difference between telling and showing, right? Modeling. Let me jump in with the third question. And it's fascinating because earlier you were talking about old Jeremie and new Jeremie, and those two being very different people. The third question is, what have you learned about yourself as a result of sitting on this comma? It sounds like there's quite a bit.
Oh God, there's quite a lot, but it's also not easy to articulate. In a
Hmm.
way, it's hard to define. But
I feel like you've given us some insight into that in
yeah,
terms of what you've shared and so forth. But yeah, what else would you add?
um, no, the main thing was, like I say, I think what's very interesting is that I, like I said, I think I said that at the beginning. I didn't feel, and to this day, I'm convinced that it's true. I don't think I was unhappy in my previous life.
Hmm.
I don't think I was not questioning anything, and I was following this path. But it wasn't bad. Nothing bad was happening to me, and I wasn't sad. And it's interesting because if you ask my wife, she was sad and more unhappy. So
Hmm.
we just different perspective. Um, but I've never felt this way personally inside. Um, but I think the main thing is I didn't know that the grass could be greener.
Hmm.
And it's just when you look at when you only see the world through you know this, and you don't know anything else, then you're content with whatever you have because
Hmm.
you don't know that there is another world outside. um, and I think that's the key, is that I didn't know anything else was possible
Hmm.
because I've never questioned it, because my parents didn't, or my family or my inner circle, my friends from the south of France, like no one else was living a different life. Everyone was following the same path and trajectory. So that
Hmm.
was the norm for me. That was like the model that every responsible adult was following. So I thought that was just what everyone did, right?
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
there's a bunch of people on TV doing things, but that's for special people. That's for the elite or whatever.
Hmm.
But it's not for like regular people like me that just have a normal life, right? So I've never questioned that before. So that's why I think I wasn't like unhappy or anything like that because I just didn't know better. I just didn't think there was
Right.
any other option. But
It seems like what you're kind of showing us, though, is that not all paths change because we're unhappy or things aren't working or because we feel stuck. This whole podcast really explores the concept of what does sitting on a comma mean and what does getting
yeah,
off the comma mean. And a lot of stories that come here are, I was unhappy, I was headed down a wrong path, bad things were happening, I didn't like it, the past wasn't good to me, and so forth. All very valid and really, real and important stories, and you're bringing in this other element, which is, I wasn't necessarily sitting on a comma, or if I was, I didn't feel like I was. I'm not coming from a place of being stuck, but I am talking about a pivot, a change, a
yeah.
shift.
I think I think I would have realized things when I'm, I don't know, 85 years old. And I think, like on my deathbed, I think then you would have hit like
Mm,
you look at your life. Was that the life that, you know, the it's a very cliche, but you only live once, like YOLO, right? But like
mm,
I think old me at 85 years old would have looked at his life and be full of regrets. That's the main thing.
mm,
But I think it would have taken me 8 decades to get there. And I think there's a lot of people, and I don't remember the title of the book, but there is a book, I mention it very often, written by a woman who was working in a hospice, and she spent decades of her life working uh, with human beings that were approaching the death, and she compiled last conversations she had with the patients, and the number one regret in that she observed was, I regret not living a life true to myself and not
mm,
to have done more in my life. Like no one
mm, mm,
regrets having work. Like no one said like I wish I had work more or stuff like that. Like
mm-hmm.
everyone regret not living a life that they wanted. Like you realize that you only have one life when you're about to die, and that's sad.
Yeah. Well, you're saying two things, or at least this is what I'm hearing, and I'm taking from it as one, it wasn't a regret, but it would have been if I had stayed on the path.
Yeah.
And two, that oh gosh, what was the phrase that was in my mind a second ago? It's really kind of more like I didn't know what I didn't know, and I remember, and that in that first 30 years, you weren't even really tuned into what you wanted or whether or not what you wanted would have been any different.
Yeah, being tuned into that's I think that's a very good way to phrase it. Also, like I wasn't tuned to anything. I don't think I was tuned to myself. I don't think I was,
Mm,
again, because I was not questioning anything.
hmm
I was living what maybe I would qualify a superficial life, like worried about external validation and how I'm perceived, and not questioning, not doing any inner work and going in like in my heart and in my brain, and not trying to understand me and myself, whatever that means, having a self. And so, but yeah, I wasn't going there. And
mm,
and that's the work that I did in Miami. A lot of personal inner work, and then a lot of observing other people's, and putting the pieces together, and making this promise to myself that I only have one life. My life can end tomorrow. I have no idea what's gonna happen. I was
mm,
convinced on December 31st, 2016, my wife and I celebrated New Year's Eve, right? Alone together in our apartment, because if we would have gone out, she would have not be drinking, and everyone would have been suspicious of like, Rosie, are you not drinking? Are you pregnant? But it was too early to tell people, so we stayed
hmm
together. Like I was convinced that my 2017 is like, I'm gonna be a dad and I'm gonna turn 30 years old, and I'm on a good path with my career. I'm gonna become this and this and this, and nothing happened. uh, and I had no clue, and we have no
mm,
clue. We have no clue what's going to happen tomorrow or next year or next month. And
mm,
I'm so glad I realized that early on, right? Because
yeah.
again, despite what happened, I was lucky enough to realize that 30 years old, which means I can still live a pretty awesome life for many, many years.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. As somebody who's a little bit further along in life and looking back at my own timeline, I mean, what a fortunate place for you to be, for you both to be able to, catch, I say catch, to have discovered a change and a shift that you wanted so early and with plenty of time to go and do
Yeah.
something about it, right? Let me go into the fourth question here. I feel like you've already shared quite a bit about this, but add to this, and that is, what has changed for you as a result of sitting on this comma?
That's where the magic happened, I feel. But it shows, and this is something that I'm very passionate about, that people can change.
Mm,
I think human beings are terrified of change at multiple levels, in terms of environment, in terms of habit, in terms of themselves. Often people say, like, if you haven't seen your friend for 5 years, it's like, you've changed.
mm,
Like it's a bad thing. It's, yeah, I've changed. We are supposed to. We are evolving creature. We should change. It's like, the problem is that you haven't changed in 5 years. It's not me the problem, it's you.
mm,
And I'm so passionate about that because I was so lucky to be able to change. Again, I'm going back to this world of like gratitude and being lucky and stuff like that, despite this horrible thing that happened to us. But it would have not happened without it. And I was lucky enough to be able to change. Like, I've changed in so many layers. First, kudos to my wife for uh, changing my very narrow-minded mindset about the world. Everything that I told about the belief that my parents ingrained in me in terms of, people of color, people with different sexual orientation, people with different religion, like all those things that I thought were true, were fact for many years.
mm,
She helped me to unpack all that because she was raised in a very different way, and she was always challenging me, like, why do you care about these people doing this or believing in now or liking this? And she was very help like she helped me a lot to change this side of me.
mm,
But then, like I said, in Miami, being much more open-minded and being receptive to change and open to change because I needed something different, I discovered that the world is full of there's many people like us that are living an unconventional life, much more than I
mm.
thought. It's just we don't know about it. We live in a bubble usually. Um,
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, too? You just got me thinking. It's like there's many people like us who are living an unconventional life. And I think it's also fair to say that there are many other forms of conventional lives that might seem unconventional to someone who feels like their life is conventional, right? So,
Very true.
yeah, like it doesn't necessarily have to be traveling the world like you are, driving around the country like I am, and doing some of these things that people see crazy, right? Like it's just anything outside of our. This is what I'm taking from amongst many things from your story is that, you know, when you are raised or find yourself in a box or, you use the kind of the
Yeah,
spyglass or the telescope visual, anything outside of that can seem scary or repellent in the worst of cases, right? But anything outside of that is just another person's form of normal, right? And so it's just multiple versions of normal and conventional, and that's
yeah.
okay.
No, yeah, it is. Yeah, and by the way, yeah, I mean you're right. Like when I say that, my goal is not to inspire everyone to sell everything, become an entrepreneur, and travel the world. It's not for everyone.
Mhm.
It's a very special lifestyle. It's everyone is not gonna like it. I don't,
But
so
if it's something you have been craving and that you have been fantasizing and you have been dreaming about, then if it's something you want, it is possible to create that if that's what you want.
my point is not what kind of life you choose, is
Mhm.
why you're choosing it. Are you choosing it because
Mm,
it's expected from you or because you
mm,
truly, truly in your core want it? And again, when I say in your core, it's like not to please people, not because it will look good on your resume, because it's going to be good on your Instagram account, just because, like, really deep within you, it feels right. And if that's opening the best pizzeria in the world where you live, cool, awesome, go
mhm.
for it. That's your dream. Like, it doesn't have to be about traveling the world,
Yeah. Well,
whatever it is.
I'll even build on that, with a personal example, if I may, which is, as I've been driving around the country, and this isn't my story, I want to support your point, which is even when it doesn't have to feel great to feel right, is the point that I want to make, right? It feeling right isn't necessarily always going to be some joy or happy thing. It's a very distinct knowing. And there have been times on this journey when I'm like, this is a harder way to go, or I'm faced with challenges that I wouldn't have if I had done this other thing, or, there's been some shit that's happened this year that I'm like, you got to be kidding me, right? And yet, every single time, if I really checked in with the deepest part of myself, it's like I could solve this problem in a million different ways, and I don't really know how, but I do know I'm still where I'm supposed to be. Get back in the car and drive to the next city. And so there's the times when and you feel that like glow and that euphoria and that ecstasy and so forth. And then there's times that's like, oh crap, like stuff is really fucking hard right now, but it's what I'm supposed to be doing.
100%. And I do remember we were messaging about that on Substack a few weeks ago.
Hmm.
It would be so much easier for me to get a job. I would get a much better income if I was getting a job somewhere for a company, but I would lose a lot of freedom. And right
Hmm.
now, I want to put my freedom first and my level of income second. Does it make my life harder? For sure. I would rather have more money right now. Things would be much easier. I'm making life harder for myself, but it's a very conscious, intentional choice that I'm making.
Yeah. It's
And
choose your
again, it feels
heart, right?
right. It feels right. It's exactly what you said. Like I know it's right. I can't explain it. I don't expect people to understand, but it is what it is.
Right, right. And in the days when you chose a corporate job and anybody who else who has any other way of living, if that's right for you, then that's right for you. And that's all that matters, right?
And who am I to judge you? Like
Yeah.
you're right. It's like we live in
Yeah.
this world where we constantly judge people for what they do, what they look, what they look like, what they like, what so who am I to tell you that? Like
Hmm.
I don't know you, right? Like and yeah,
I feel like that's also an important thing to kind of underscore to even punchline here. And if I'm off base, you let me know. But when you have talked repeatedly about I didn't question new ways of thinking, I started questioning. It seems like that's one of the things that when we wake up to looking at the world differently, we start to question the judgments. That's one of the many
mm,
things that we start to question, right? You said you were
yeah,
raised with these judgments that your family and your community gave you, racism,
yeah,
homophobia, and so forth. Sounds like those are some of the very first things you started questioning through the help of your wife, Rosie.
for sure, yeah. Because also guidance help, right? It's
Hmm.
very hard to figure everything out. It's very hard to see and to
Sure.
identify your own self-limiting belief because you don't know
Hmm.
what they are, right? We we are we are put through a very strong conditioning growing up,
Hmm.
and this conditioning is different in every country, in every region where we are from. It's different, but we all go through a conditioning from school, from parenting, from our environment, from our whatever country we live in, and the politics and everything influenced by AI. And it's very hard to see that when you're in it, and it often takes someone to point things to you, say like, but why do you think this way? Do you think that's a fact, or do you think that's just an opinion? Because very
Hmm.
often we believe things are like hard truth, hard fact, when it's just opinions and it's just that.
Hmm.
and and it
Worldviews, beliefs.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
fascinating. It's such a fascinating topic.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. And then I'm going to go to the last question is, you say the conditioning changes wherever you live in the world and so forth. But isn't it interesting that throughout history, one thing that has been consistent is that there's always conditioning. Family, community,
Yeah.
society, like there always seems to be conditioning, whatever it is or whatever is placed as a priority, right?
'Cause I think it's part of it is unconscious, and part of it is just the result of the conditioning that the previous generation got. So it's just something
Hmm.
that's passed on. And when I say part of it is unconscious, it's like I think the the familial. community conditioning. I think it's mainly unconscious. It's just the result of years and years of that. After the high level conditioning, politics and everything, that could be called manipulation also. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to get into
Mm-hmm.
the, but.
Yeah. Jeremy, briefly then, as we kind of start to close things out, question 5 is, what does getting off the comma look like for you?
It's living a life on my own term. It's
Mm,
living a life that if I die tomorrow, I'll be okay. I'll be happy with the life I've lived.
mm,
And I'm, as weird as it sounds, I'm very happy and I feel privileged to be able to say that.
mm-hmm,
Um, because I think since that, I've been living a life very aligned with my belief, with my values, with my desires, and and um, yeah, no regrets, And there's obviously more things that I want to do, but if I don't get to do them, I'm in a pretty good spot right now, and I feel very privileged, right, to be there, and
mm-hmm.
that's the main thing. Like I said, like the traveling, the stuff, that's a personal preference. That's why I don't want to emphasize on this point, but it's more like an inner feeling, right? Uh, I was able to change, and again, the transition didn't happen overnight. It's not one day I woke up and I was, I went on off the coma. It was a process that took
Mm-hmm.
a few years, but now that I'm on the other side, um, I'm glad I am, and I'm glad of everything that I did since then. And I try to remind myself on a regular basis that because society, the conditioning is very good, the drift is very good, and
Mm-hmm.
we can very easily be caught up into it again. And you need to do the work constantly to stay on top of what you really want, who you are, what matters to you, because that's changing also, right? When we age and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm making a very conscious and intentional effort on a regular basis to practice that. It's just a practice. I think that's a good word. Just like
Yeah,
when you work your muscles, you need to work also this muscle and this muscle.
right. Ah, so important. Jeremy, there's so much more that we could get into. Unfortunately, podcasts have to come to a close, right? But for people who have listened to you and want to find out more about what you're doing or learn more about your experience or maybe, learn more about some of the places you've been to or hear more about your story, well, I'll put all the information in the show notes with the clickable links. Tell us, where can people find you and where can people see what you're up to?
Yeah, the easiest way to find me is on my website, is jeremieandre.com. Everything is on there in terms of my Substack newsletter where we met. Uh,
Hmm.
I try to send a weekly newsletter talking about digital nomadism, entrepreneurship, and just personal growth. Just
Hmm.
sharing whatever's going on in my brain, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
um,
and I mean, and
yeah.
there's a lot more kind of elaboration on some parts of your story too in
No,
in
yeah,
those
for sure.
newsletters
Yeah,
as
I
well.
go
Yeah,
I go deep into it, and yeah, everything else on my website about what I do for work, in terms of like uh, coaching, consulting, all that, everything is in there.
great. And then, Jeremy, the last part of the episode is something I do for every guest because if this podcast is all about sharing stories and normalizing listening and lifting up people's voices, your story wouldn't be complete if we didn't give you an opportunity to also lift up others who matter to you. So I call this section acknowledgments. And so it's your opportunity to give a voice to, boost, lift up anyone else who matters to you. And so that could be causes or organizations, it could be other creators, individuals in your family or your circles that are important. Who would you like to lift up and acknowledge today?
So you asked me this question a little bit ago, and I told you one person, but after speaking,
Hmm.
I'm gonna mention four people. Well, yeah. The first one is my wife, Rosie, because
Hmm.
again, she was transformative in my journey. Before everything that happened, she started to change me already and made me, yeah, a better human being. So I'm very
Hmm.
grateful for that. Uh, the second person was it's my parents, putting them together,
Hmm.
because despite our differences, especially right now, despite the fact that I don't think they fully understand what I'm doing, the life I'm living, and everything. They've never stopped me doing it,
Mm.
and kudos to that, because I think as human being, we usually tend to stop people when we don't understand what they're doing out
Mhm.
of protection and stuff like that. But they've never done that, so I've got to give them credit, for that, and I've got to be grateful for it. Um, and I mentioned it before, but again, I think my life could have taken a different turn if I didn't have my two former boss,
Mm.
Julien Gomez and Julien Delot from France,
Mm.
because man, we are very good friends, even if I don't work with them anymore. But um, they were there when I needed them. I needed support. I needed someone to be on my side, and they were there, And I still remember the conversation that I had with one of them when I called and said, like, we need to move, we need to do something. And I remember saying something along the line of like, I know this is business, and I know, like, as a boss, you're not supposed to let your emotion, like, into this. And he said, like, no, like, business is all about human, and
Mm.
human and people matter. I'm not talking to a robot. I'm not a robot. He said something along those lines that was very powerful. And
That's very French. It's not very United
probably,
Statesian.
probably, yeah, that's very true. But
It
yeah,
sounds like they had a positive influence, though, a really
yeah,
powerful
for sure,
influence on your
on
life.
many different aspects.
Yeah.
But at this specific moment, I needed someone to be on my corner, and they were
Hmm.
there. And
Nice.
yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Nice. Well, I'll make sure that we get those folks all listed
Yeah.
in the show notes so that people can check them out if they have links. And if not, they will be there and acknowledged as part of your story. Jeremie, again, thank you so much for sharing your story today. I knew a little bit of your story, even if we hadn't talked about specifically what you'd be talking about today. And it's just been a pleasure getting to know you even deeper. I'm sure we'll have much more chats and people can look for our conversations in Substack. But again, just want to thank you again for sharing your story and for giving yourself the opportunity to go back through it and see what else you could learn about yourself in the retelling.
Yeah, no, thank you for creating this space. It's not easy to hold a space where people feel
Mm.
safe to open up. So I do want to acknowledge that. I've been on the other side, so I know that as a fact. So I want to
Hmm.
tell you, I want to give you, credit for that, because it's not easy.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you for holding this space and for letting me share about
Yeah.
myself and my journey.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Have a wonderful end to your week and continued, just invigorating travels as you travel around the world.
Thank you.
What an honor it is for me to hear and share these powerful stories. I hope you feel the same way. Think about what you learned from this conversation. I encourage you to write it down in some form of journaling or reflection, because surprises can reveal themselves to you when you write your thoughts down. If you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. And if you do discover something you'd like to unpack further, book a call with me and let's talk about it. My links are in the show notes. Be sure to like this episode and follow the podcast here on this platform and all social media at Off the Comma. Feel free to interact and comment. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. As always, keep noticing and keep listening.